Hello everyone and welcome back to another drawing video. So this week I am drawing Ladybug and Shat Noir from Miraculous Ladybug, and let's get right to it. So for this week's project I actually worked from the background forward. So I did this because I knew I wanted to use a technique which would actually use rubbing alcohol, and it can get really messy and it can smudge your characters if you do that first. So I decided to work from the background forward. I started by laying down some colors, so I laid down the bright yellow that you see on the Eiffel Tower and the gray for the clouds, and then I went in and put in my blues. And after I had to lay it down as smoothly as possible, but I was actually beginning to run out of it. This was my Prussian blue in Copic, and since it was beginning to run out, it kind of streaked a little bit. But that was okay. I worked with it as well as I could, and then to add depth and texture, I put in a light purple, which kind of added something to the sky. After that, I went in and shaded the clouds a little bit more to kind of add the feeling that the clouds are being illuminated by the moonlight, and added some kind of a kind of halo around the moon. This gives the impression that the moon is actually glowing. I used a ruler while laying down colors around the Eiffel Tower and along the skyline. That way all the lines would appear sharp. As it turns out, the ruler along the skyline actually wasn't necessary because I would go back in when I was laying down my mid-ground, which is going to be the city level, and I kind of delineated that line, that area, but it was very important around the Eiffel Tower to give it that nice crisp appearance. Moving on to the middle ground, I actually forgot and my camera wasn't rolling as I was actually filming that. So I'm showing you which colors I used, and there were 3 grays and a yellow. The yellow was used for some of the lights, and the grays I started with actually a black, and like I said, I kind of delineated the skyline a little bit with the black, so I kind of went in circular motions, and then I blended it all down into the lightest closer to the rooftop where Ladybug and Shat Noir are sitting. I then used rubbing alcohol to provide dots along the cityscape, which kind of provided that kind of out of focus look around the lights. If you would like to see a video of me explaining a little bit more of that, I will have a card pop up and it will take you to a link towards another one of my videos. Once I had finished working on the cityscape behind them, I went on and worked on the characters themselves. So I knew that Ladybug's costume was going to be fairly easy. I just had 2 major colors that I used, one for the actual blanket color and one for the shading. But the really difficult part came with working on Ladybug's face. She has that really pale lipstick, or lip gloss I guess, but it was really difficult to kind of catch the essence of that because every time I try to put any color on a character's lips, it makes them look like they're wearing way too much makeup. So what I did was I put my pink color, I don't remember which one it was, I think it was Peony, and I put it on her lips, and then I blended it out with the same colors that I used for her skin tone, which I actually wound up liking the effect because it kind of faded the lip color a little bit. I wound up putting a little bit extra on later on, towards the end of the painting, but not very much. Finally, it came time to do Shat Noir's costume. I was actually really looking forward to this because I kind of like how shiny it looks, and I was looking forward to recreating the shiny effect. So I used one of my darkest gray colors, and I applied it all over his costume, except in places that I wanted to be highlighted. I left those completely white at the moment. I'll go back in later and work on those. But first, I used my darkest gray and I used black. And I blended those two together. They blended very nicely and very smoothly together. And it meant that I could create that shiny effect. So make sure that when you're trying to blend to give a shiny effect, that you kind of flick the ends of the marker so that those ends kind of feather, and it will allow that shiny effect to appear. After I blended it all together, I went back into the white spots and I used one of my lighter grays. I think it was a C3 to blend all those white spots into a gray so it wouldn't look such a stark contrast. I will go back in later and apply white so that it's even more shiny, but at the moment I kind of liked the gray. Also a quick note on planning. So unfortunately when I was creating the sketch, I forgot to put the cuffs into Shat Noir's boots and onto his wrists, and I realized that at the last minute. So what I decided to do, since everything was already done in ink, was I used the shading to cover those marks. So I made sure that everything was black up to those points where everything crossed. It kind of allowed that mistake to not be seen as much. So finishing up this drawing, I created the metal rooftop by blending eggplant and my darkest gray and black, and it created this kind of cool effect with the metal roof. And then I moved on to the Eiffel Tower. I was actually very nervous to do the Eiffel Tower because it was, I knew I needed the bright yellow background for the Eiffel Tower so that it would really look like the light was bright and shining through it, but it really became this almost daunting task to turn that into something dark and recognizable as the Eiffel Tower. But I started with Lanette Brown and Walnut Brown to kind of provide the basic shapes that I needed. I also zoomed in so you could see a little bit better. And then after I've created the major shapes and shading with my markers, I went back in with my colored pencils and drew in the major cross hatching, which would eventually become the beams for the Eiffel Tower. I also went back in with a little bit of white to really lighten up those places which I kind of wanted to show as really being bright and light, and that completed the Eiffel Tower itself. I then took my colored pencils and used them to brighten up some of the lights in the background, or the midground, the city, and to really make those circles that I had created with the alcohol to look like little lights shining, I kind of rimmed some of them with the yellow, which I really liked the effect and I had so much fun with that. And that completes my drawing of Ladybug and Shat Noir. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!